Tell me just one word, are you happy now? Today, right now? With her? What did she say? She would not get up, she did not listen to him, she asked hurriedly and was in a hurry to speak, as though she were being pursued. I'm leaving tomorrow, as you told me to. I won't. I'm seeing you for the last time, the last. Now it really is the last time. Calm yourself, get up. He said in despair. She peered at him greedily, clutching his hands. Farewell. She said at last, stood up, and quickly walked away from him, almost ran. The prince saw that Rogojin was suddenly beside her, took her arm, and led her away. Wait, prince, cried Rogojin, in 5 minutes I'll come back for a bit. In 5 minutes he indeed came back, the prince was waiting for him in the same place. I put her in the carriage, he said. It's been waiting there on the corner since 10 o'clock. She just knew you'd spend the whole evening with the other one. I told her exactly what you wrote me today. She won't write to the other one anymore, she promised, and she'll leave here tomorrow, as you wished. She wanted to see you one last time, even though you refused. We waited here in this place for you to go back, over there, on that bench. She brought you along herself? And what of it? Rogojin grinned. I saw what I knew. You read her letters, eh? But can you really have read them? Asked the prince, astounded by the thought. What else? She showed me each letter herself. Remember about the razor? Hey, hey. She's insane, cried the prince, wringing his hands. Who knows, maybe she's not, Rogojin said softly, as if to himself. The prince did not answer. Well, goodbye, said Rogojin, I'm leaving tomorrow, too, don't think ill of me. And how come, brother? He added, turning quickly, how come you didn't say anything in answer to her? Are you happy or not? No, no, no. The prince exclaimed with boundless sorrow. As if you'd say yes. Rogojin laughed spitefully and walked off without looking back. Part 4. About a week went by after the two persons of our story met on the green bench. One bright morning, around 10:30, Varvara Ardalionovna Tin, having gone out to visit some of her acquaintances, returned home in great and rueful pensiveness. There are people of whom it is difficult to say anything that would present them at once and fully, in their most typical and characteristic aspect. These are those people who are usually called ordinary people, the majority, and who indeed make up the vast majority in any society. Writers in their novels and stories for the most part try to take social types and present them graphically and artistically, types which in their full state are met with extremely rarely in reality and which are nonetheless almost more real than reality itself. Podkolessin 1 in his typical aspect may well be an exaggeration, but he is by no means an impossibility. What a host of intelligent people, having learned about Podkolessin from Gogol, at once began to find that dozens and hundreds of their good acquaintances and friends were terribly like Podkolessin. They knew before Gogol that these friends were like Podkolessin, they simply did not know yet precisely what their name was. In reality, it is terribly rare that bridegrooms jump out of windows before their weddings, because, to say nothing else, it is even inconvenient. Nonetheless, how many bridegrooms, even worthy and intelligent people, in the depths of their conscience, have been ready before marriage to acknowledge themselves as Podkolessins. Nor does every husband cry at each step. Tu l'as voulu, Georges Dandin. Tu but, God, how many millions and billions of times have the husbands of the whole world repeated this heartfelt cry after their honeymoon, and, who knows, maybe even the day after the wedding. And so, without going into more serious explanations, we shall say only that in reality the typicality of persons is watered down, as it were, and all these Georges Dandins and Podkolessins really, you asked for it, Georges Dandin, exist, scurry and run around in front of us daily, but as if in a somewhat diluted state. Having mentioned, finally, for the sake of the complete truth, that the full Georges Dandin, as Molière created him, may also be met with in reality, though rarely, we shall therewith end our discourse, which is beginning to resemble a critical article in some journal. Nonetheless, a question remains before us all the same: what is a novelist to do with ordinary, completely usual people, and how can he present them to the reader so as to make them at least somewhat interesting? To bypass them altogether in a story is quite impossible, because ordinary people are constantly and for the most part the necessary links in the chain of everyday events. In bypassing them we would thus violate plausibility. To fill novels with nothing but types, or even simply, for the sake of interest, with strange and non-existent people, would be implausible, and perhaps uninteresting as well. In our opinion, the writer should try to seek out interesting and instructive nuances even among ordinary people. And when, for instance, the very essence of certain ordinary people consists precisely in their permanent and unchanging ordinariness, or, better still, when, despite all the extreme efforts of these people to get out of the rut of the usual and the routine, they end up all the same by remaining unchangingly and eternally in one and the same routine, then such people even acquire a kind of typicality, as that ordinariness which refuses to remain what it is and wants at all costs to become original and independent, but is not the slightest means of achieving independence. To this category of usual or ordinary people belong certain persons of our story, who till now, I admit it, have been little explained to the reader. Such, namely, are Varvara Ardalionovna Tin, her husband, Mr. Tin, and Gavrila Ardalionovich, her brother. Indeed, there is nothing more vexing, for instance, than to be rich, of respectable family, of decent appearance, of rather good education, not stupid, even kind, and at the same time to have no talent, no particularity, no oddity even, not a single idea of one's own, to be decidedly like everybody else. There is wealth, but not a Rothschild's, an honorable family, but which has never distinguished itself in any way, a decent appearance, but very little expression, a proper education, but without knowing what to apply it to. There is intelligence, but with no ideas of one's own. There is a heart, but with no magnanimity, etc., etc., in all respects. There are a great many such people in the world, and even far more than it seems. They are divided, as all people are, into two main categories, one limited, the other much cleverer. The first are happier. For the limited usual man, for instance, there is nothing easier than to imagine himself an unusual and original man and to revel in it without any hesitation. As soon as some of our young ladies cut their hair, put on blue spectacles, and called themselves nihilists, they became convinced at once that, having put on the spectacles, they immediately began to have their own convictions.